Hey, everybody, welcome. We're back here with another edition of Late Night Snacks. We're your co hosts, Emilio Villarruel, and
Jeffrey Meese.
welcome. As you can see, Jeff and I are a little, well, we'll say we're repping our respective cities. I noticed you have a Boston hat there, and that's Red Sox?
It is indeed the Red Sox. Although I'm a child of many places, the Red Sox and the New England sports are my hometown.
Confession time, I'm not really, we'll say, in the know when it comes to most sports. So I could recognize the B. And then when I thought, I'm like, wait, which team was that supposed to be? Uh, Brief. And then, of course, had to represent Detroit with the Detroit jacket, maybe the only article of Detroit clothing I own, but it felt apropos because for this month in our Tipsy Travels article, we revisit my hometown of Detroit, Michigan, and with it, the last word, which is a Detroit origin Prohibition era cocktail that started off, actually, I Google mapped it, 11 minutes from my house.
Wow, that is truly hometown.
Very hometown. So this is a gin, chartreuse, maraschino liqueur, and lime juice.
Well, is it more enjoyable than the last cocktails we did?
I almost, in all honesty, so I tried it out last weekend, really get a feel for it. And this past Friday night, I sat there and after trying it out, I was like, well, now we've got to try two out just to make sure, quality control, consistency. After the third or fourth, I stopped lying to myself and I just had to admit, I am a huge fan of this cocktail. Just without reservation or qualms, I'm a big fan of it. And Jeff, I believe you also are working on a hometown cocktail yourself.
Well, inspired by your Tipsy Travels article, I had to go digging for a native Bostonian cocktail, and I landed on a Ward 8, which, if you start looking at it, it gets pretty bad reviews across the board. And you have to work to find a recipe that someone much smarter and with much better taste than me kind of got to with a delicious version of it. And they did. It is kind of a riff on a sour at this point. It is rye whiskey. And I pulled out, and this is some might call it sacrilege. This is a Michter's, the 10-year rye. It's actually a really nice bottle of rye, but it's the rye I had in my cabinet. And you buy the booze to drink the booze. So it is Michter's rye, and then it is 15 ml of lemon juice, 15 ml of orange juice, a bar spoon of grenadine, and a maraschino cherry. And every time I have a maraschino cherry, so you spoon out the cherry out of the jar and you drop it in the glass, and you can see it kind of hanging out there at the bottom. And like, it is the syrup in the jar is so viscous that you can't help but just like lick the spoon clean. And it's just so sweet and so delicious. Like, I could make these all night just for this, like the cleaning of the spoon exercise. It's fantastic. But on that note, cheers to another late night snacks.
Cheers to another late night snacks. And I have to say, it looks delicious. Whew. The one thing I discovered, admittedly rather tipsily, in my testing, was that chartreuse is 55% alcohol.
Yeah.
And I find it entertaining considering the fact that it's like, as far as I know, chartreuse is done like in-house by a team of like monks. And then
these were the original, like, we're going to make medicinal tinctures and elixirs, right? So these were supposed to be made for health purposes. I constantly think back to, the real kind of adventurers in beverage when they were just making this stuff up and throwing stuff in a bottle and just like, let's see what happens and drink it. It's, yeah, mind blowing that any of them survived or any of those drinks survived till today.
It also kind of makes you wonder, like when you taste things that are, aged like 10 years, 20 years, like who's the first person who had the idea? And, because it's kind of a long payoff to wait and see if your idea is going to be worthwhile or not.
I do imagine like that the 1 year whiskey was an experiment that someone could like get their head around. And they're like, this is better. Okay, let's see what 2 years tastes like, 3 years, 4 years. And then you're just like, wow, is there a point of diminishing returns? And I'm sure that like real whiskey makers would say there is, but yeah, I don't know. It's a testament to human ingenuity. That's a hard one to pull off.
But and two, just thinking of the medicinal background, I wonder if it's kind of like you'd go see the like school nurse and you're like, all right, I'm just gonna go ahead and play sick just so I can, get out of it. Like I imagine once they figured this stuff out, there was plenty of monks who's like, your ankle's hurting? Mine do. Yeah. Let's
We got a really bad cold.
I think I'm possessed. Super possessed. But we're not just drinking to hometown throwbacks and Prohibition era classics. We also have some pretty exciting stuff happening under the hood at OrderEZ, including, we'll say, a new addition. Do you want to share a little bit more about that, Jeff?
Yeah, for sure. And I'll take off the hometown hat and go back to the day job hat and join you in the OrderEZ hats. So just last month, at the end of January, we completed the acquisition of a warehouse management software. So as most of you know, we have software for bars and restaurants and cafes. We have software for distributors. And the intersection of those two was really the initial idea for OrderEZ, like bringing those two together and making that whole world more efficient and more seamless and just making everybody's existence better there. But the more we got into working with these distributors, more and more people are moving to third-party logistics, whether it's just for their warehousing or for warehousing and last mile delivery. Very few businesses will own their warehousing from the entire supply chain. And in September, we ended up building an integration for one of our distributors so that they could order, do all of their order management, all of their sales support, everything from OrderEZ, but then they could also put in a schedule for delivery and schedule their orders for delivery from the warehouse. So it immediately pushed the documents, all the information, all the inventory updates to this third-party warehouse. And we got to talking with the founders over there. It's a guy named Mike Hadley. Mike runs a warehouse, but he built this software, for their proprietary use. So the warehouse runs on this, and what they really wanted to do is they wanted to streamline the communication between their customers and the warehouse. It's like, oh, this sounds very familiar. We got talking some more. I started telling him about what we're doing. And suddenly we realized we were very much kindred spirits in the sense that, we're looking at this problem going, how is it 2022 and we're still dealing with this stuff, and that there's not better ways to do it. So fast forward a few months, Michael always wanted to have bigger aspirations for the software aspect of his business, but knew that he didn't have a team to do it, and he was busy running a warehouse. So we came to an agreement, and we acquired the proprietary warehouse management software that they had built, with the idea that we're going to kind of add one more chain to that link in the supply chain. So outlets, distributors, and warehouse providers, the information will flow seamlessly between all three. and we have our first customer live on it currently. So the warehouse that Michael runs his whole warehouse in that software. One of our existing customers is already using the integration, and actually two of our existing customers are now using that integration to be able to push information directly to their warehouse. And we really just saw that as as an opportunity to continue solving the same problem, just in every kind of iteration that we kind of came across.
I think that it's quite interesting how, coming across Provino and the way that you describe it, you mentioned like, hey, we came across this problem or felt the need to create something to make the work we do easier. And so we did, because it's very similar, as you said, it sounds familiar, to the OrderEZ story. And so I do really like the sense of like, hey, I've talked about this before, but we're not creating a solution in search of a problem. Like this is very much, hey, we're people who have worked with this stuff. We got really frustrated and then we said, okay, if there's nothing better out there, dang it, I'm going to make it myself. And, now, hey, we get to wear these cool OrderEZ hats and the company's growing.
Yeah, it is. I think that was really the tie that bound us together was, he was running a warehouse, didn't see solutions. So he's like, you know what, I'm just going to build something. And it did. It very much spoke to our early days. And I think that spoke to him as well. And one of the great things for us is, we had been getting pressure from some customers to build some more advanced warehousing and inventory management components into the platform. And, I've worked in bars and restaurants and cafes. I've built a distribution business. I haven't run like a big warehouse with 20 or 30 customers, substantial customers in there. So really being able to leverage Michael's experience and the team at Provino seemed like a great win on multiple fronts. Like the software is great and we're seamlessly integrated already, but that wealth of knowledge that comes with it. And we're able to, I get to go into the warehouse. I spent 4 hours there a couple weeks ago, just talking with Michael and the team and I understand how the software works, but how does the business work so that I can dig deep and, try as best as possible to kind of take what I think has made OrderEZ great for our existing customers, which is like boots on the ground, day-to-day experience and harvest as much of that from Michael as possible. So, we keep talking about the fact that, we're industry people making software for the industry. And, if I haven't done the job, I really want to dig into it and kind of extract as much knowledge as possible. So
I think just, again, obviously, generally not every single programmer or, individual is going to be someone who has deep knowledge in F&B, but the idea is that the informed decisions are done with information from people who actually have experienced it. And so it's not a question of like, oh, hey, what would be cool or what can we sell? It's a question of, okay, what's our problem? What's a better way to do it? Well, let's do that. And hey, everybody, we fixed it.
It's funny. So that's the big news externally, which is going to be a part of the internalization in the next kind of couple of months and probably for another year, to be completely honest. It will take some time to fully integrate it, both look and feel as well as kind of just the back end systems. But we're putting the finishing touches on kind of all the grooming, the logic, and the workflows for our e-commerce integrations with Shopify, WooCommerce, and stuff like that. And was on the phone with the dev team Thursday night for like 3 hours, just running through the last kind of working group document on it. And it was a great one because we got into it and we were reminding ourselves, what are we trying to accomplish? Because the first version, the dev team kind of said, we can do all of these things. And I was like, no. Like, pare it back. What are we trying to do? We want to capture all of this information from Shopify, display inventory to Shopify so you're not selling stuff that you don't have, but all the orders come into one place seamlessly. And kind of once we took those kind of guiding principles and started going back through it, it not only got simpler, but it got better. It was just, all right, we're not doing stuff just for the sake of doing stuff. We're doing the stuff that, if you have an e-commerce specialist on your team, they're going to go into Shopify or WooCommerce and they're going to build out those meta tags. They're going to build out all that data and they're going to build out that product information that's critical to their job. But from a business management perspective, you're not in that. That's a specialized tool. Just like when we built the Zero integration, the accountants are integral in setting that up, but your general manager, your sales managers aren't going into your accounting software to see where things are going on the chart of accounts. It's let the specialists work where the specialists work, and they can go as deep as they want and facilitate some a breadth of opportunities. We try to keep the OrderEZ tool at its core as simple as possible, because we think that's what users like and want. But with these niche cases, yeah, the integrations can get complex, but it's kind of a one-time thing that you do with a specialist. And then you're kind of like, okay, you play over here, you play over here. I get all the information I need here. And it was a really great reminder just to, clean up your thinking, refine your thinking, like, what are we trying to accomplish with this? Not what can we accomplish with this?
It reminds me of the old expression, like they were so concerned with whether or not they could, they hadn't stopped to consider if they should. And I think that's sort of fitting because I've while my experience in F&B tech isn't super lengthy, my experience in just software and tech in general is quite extensive, and I've come across so many bits of software where it's just like they try to throw everything at the kitchen sink and the kitchen sink at you. You're paralyzed by options. I'm sitting there. I'm like, how do I even begin to like get my one use case out of like this, massive dashboard of settings and whatnot with the acronyms and all these things I don't understand. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just go back to the old way. Which I think is really something we want to avoid, because there is a better way to do things, and as long as it's simple and not too like intimidating or daunting, I think that people will adopt it and will eventually agree.
Yeah, I fundamentally think that it's much harder to make something simple than it is to make it complex. If you allow every idea into the mix, yes, it can do everything for everybody, but then it's ineffective at really being useful. And we just try to stick to the things that our customers are telling us. I have, dozens of conversations every month with distributors, whether they're craft breweries or alcohol distributors or bakeries. And I'm just trying to get a feel for what are the things that they care about? Where are their pain points? I have my own experiences to pull from, which helps me kind of guide conversations and ask good questions to get good feedback. But the things that people care about are, managing multi-channel inventory. I've got 4 warehouses. I want to be able to sell stuff. I don't want to sell stuff I don't have. It's simple stuff like that. Which, well, you say it's simple, but once you start looking at all the channels that you sell through today, it gets more and more complex. So it's a matter of, how do we solve that problem for people and make it feel simple? I think that's the real core, is just making it feel simple. And we often get customers and prospects when I'm walking through the demo, or, they've been demoing the product, and they're like, I don't want to sound offensive, but it's really easy and simple. I'm like, that's 100% the goal.
I mean, it's in the name. In describing that, and I couldn't help but draw parallels to cooking. Like as I listened to you describe sort of what you were going for with the software, and I thought about, like, we have the expression, too many cooks ruin the pot. Or like, I think back to my early days of cooking where, boy, my ambition far outpaced my skill and my knowledge. And I can just think of so many attempts at, like, I'm just gonna throw this wild combination together, and haha, and just it's just bad. And now as I grow older and I've refined my palate and whatnot, I really appreciate more the dishes in which I can just taste every ingredient.
That feels true. It really does. In terms of other stuff that we're working on that I think is exciting, we're building this e-commerce integration because it's the number one thing that we get asked about on a regular basis. So just like, yeah. So if everybody wants it, then hey, you should finally get around to building it. The other thing that we're getting ready to launch is, as you started talking about kitchens, one of the pain points that we get out of kitchens and bars all the time is like doing monthly stock takes, weekly, monthly stock takes. It's a simple task to go around and count all the stuff that you have, but it's being done on Excel spreadsheets. It's being done on clipboards. It's being done in crazy ways, and so we're gonna build it into our apps and allow customers to just do mobile stock takes, walk around. Everything that you order is already in the app, so everything that you need to do stock take on is already in the app. So you can walk around, go walk through the cooler, jump in the walk-in cooler, walk through, and just punch in the numbers on everything you have. These little things to like free people up to have, just to have more time. We're still fighting through kind of the COVID restrictions here in Singapore, and we're doing our Omicron wave is running wild right now. And what we're seeing is that like venues are having to run limited hours because they don't have enough staff. So, and we think that these problems are more systemic than just this period. And freeing up an hour, 3 people for an hour a week doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're one of those people that's freeing up an hour a week, it feels like a ton.
I mean, I can only imagine, especially with, you talked about it in the article that you wrote, last month about just kind of the state of the union on kind of the F&B business or F&B industry rather. And there's a lot of people leaving. I mean, it's with restrictions, it makes it difficult for some people to maintain their livelihoods. And so at some point you just have to say, hey, practical decisions, I got to eat, my family's got to eat. And so it makes it more difficult to go ahead and staff these venues. And so any little bit that can, reduce some of that strain, anything that can make it so that, the ones that are remaining have a less stressful time and can say, oh, okay, wow, that was easier than before. Like, I think that that's important. And especially when maybe everything else in their kind of like professional F&B experiences, maybe not trending in the best direction thanks to, factors that are completely out of their control.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what, as an American, I always look to America. It's a huge market. And the US and Western Europe is kind of, I don't know, almost not quite 6 months ahead of us from like a reopening perspective, but they're just farther along in returning to normalcy. And I'm going to be really curious to see what the dip is. So you had all these people who were forced out of the industry or compelled to leave the industry in 2020, and a lot of them don't come back. But do the next wave start to fill in? Where do they fill in? What are they drawn to? What are they pulling away from? Is it, part of me wonders if it's owner operated venues that are going to survive. It's if you're a chef and you're going to dedicate 100 hours a week to a restaurant, take the chance and just make it your own restaurant, as opposed to doing it for someone else. I don't know. But I'm very curious to see how it all plays out in the next couple of years.
It's an interesting point in that we really don't know sort of how the landscape has shifted because we're still a little bit too close to sort of, properly take into account all the adjustments or sort of what's next to come. But I feel at some point, there has to be a correction to where things change in some way. There has to be some adjustments made in order to say, we need to stop this situation from deteriorating to the point where we all want to be able to go out and enjoy a nice meal. This isn't unique to anybody. I think everyone who, at least anyone that I'm friends with, we all like to go out and eat. It's maybe I'm selective with who I associate with, but it seems like a pretty ubiquitous thing that everyone likes to do. And so if we start to lose those things, there have to be changes. And I think that in seeing that some of those changes are going to come in the form of how do we make it more pleasant for the people that are willing to stick around.
A part of launching, there's a couple of new concepts that are launching that I've been kind of watching closely, and it's really fun to see. And once you're in the industry, and especially doing what we do, like we're looking at this granular data of what people are buying, and then you go into the concept, you go into the restaurant, the bar, and you see what they're selling and what they're taking those raw ingredients that we see in OrderEZ. So we can see, hey, I bought 12 of this, 6 of that. I bought avocados, I bought bread, I bought dukkha, I bought whatever. But then you get to go into the venue and get to see it all combined, and you get to see how those pieces come together. And like everybody does menu planning, like before you launch a new item, whether it's a drink or a food item on any menu, everybody goes through the menu engineering process. And this is something that we get asked about at OrderEZ fairly often because we have all of that purchasing information, all the stuff that you buy. So, building out that menu engineering piece from a software perspective isn't, it's not rocket science. We're not trying to build trajectories to land a lunar module on, the far side of the moon. We're just talking about putting ingredients together and, monitoring cost. But I don't, I go back and forth just because people say it as an idea. Like, do people actually really want to do that on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis and try to manage costs that closely? And I just don't know if it's that, if they want to, if very many businesses want to get that granular. I definitely talk to some operators who say, hey, my chef has a COGS target, a cost of goods sold target that he needs to hit if he wants to get his bonus. So we love OrderEZ because, hey, the chef can see his COGS in real time at any moment throughout the course of the month. And I'm like, okay, well, that's great. And, it does, like the old saying, what gets measured gets managed. And so for most, I had another conversation with someone on Thursday last week, and it was the 24th of February, I think, when I talked to him. And he said that he didn't yet have his cost of goods sold for January finalized. And he's 3 weeks into February, and they're still doing the numbers. So he's still waiting for his accountant to get the numbers together and to get him his cost of goods sold for January. Yeah. So he's like, we can't change anything about January's numbers. We're already 3 weeks out. I can't even change February's numbers based on like whatever I learned. So I'm trying to decide, where along this continuum between tracking, matching every ingredient purchased to every item sold, is one end of the continuum, and then getting it 4 weeks later is the other end of the continuum. And like, where do operators want to be? Would they be over here if it was easy? Yeah, I like, these are the questions that kind of keep me up from what are we going to build from a product perspective?
I have to say, and granted, I've never owned my own F&B business, but the idea of not getting real-time data on sort of where you're at for, your purchasing and cost of goods sold, the sort of mental image that came to mind is like saying, hey, Jeff, let's play rock, paper, scissors. You go first. And then I wait and see what you throw before I go ahead and do mine. It's like, well, if if you're seeing that kind of delay, like how can you win? But one thing I will say, sort of in reference and relevance to that, is that actually we're also launching a new pilot program over at OrderEZ called Off Menu. And this is something I'm very excited to share with everyone. And effectively, this is a way to sort of get answers to those questions. So, granted, of course you're going to have conversations with customers on a regular basis, and prospective customers, and that's part of the standard day-to-day business practice. But this is something in which I felt that was really instrumental to get the feedback of people who are probably the most vocal, or who are the most like, I really want to see something different in terms of what's already out there with the existing F&B tech, and the most excited about kind of trying these things out and informing their growth. And I say that because you might have, let's say, some person who they're like, I'm not, just teach me how to use it, and then I'll do what you tell me, and I'll run it that way. And then you have some other people who are more like, oh, what does this do? And I think that it's very valuable to get that kind of feedback from both sides, mind you, but especially in sort of the planning and creation stage, necessary to get some of those voices, so that it's not just Jeff's version of what's good for outlets and suppliers, or so and so's version of what's good. It's we want to hear from the community. It's for the community. So tell us what you like. And with that, the name of this new program is called Off Menu. So you'll get a chance at seeing some new features and some new ideas that we're looking to thread into OrderEZ before they launch. So from the very beginning, helping to define kind of the product inception, product development, and of course, I think that it's important for us, as we say, like, we're by the industry for the industry. Like, we're also a little bit removed from the industry. It's been some time since I've worked in the kitchen. It's been some time since you were serving up coffees. Like, it's good for us to make sure we have that boots on the ground feel and feedback. And that's what I'm really excited about, just getting a chance to like connect with our customers more, and say, all right, how can we make this like super awesome and even better for you?
Yeah, I think so far the response has been really good as I'm talking to customers and potential customers. The idea of being able to build some custom reporting, especially, and that's a big part of it is, hey, before we go invest, hundreds of hours into building like the next iteration of business intelligence and reporting that we're going to for our customers, let's get, the kind of database of what's possible grows with every single customer. So if we kind of say, listen, all of the information that we're collecting, what do you want to see? And we build that dashboard. And then the next person, we add that to the list, and the next person comes along and we're like, we're really into all of these things. What else do you want to see? And then they add another thing, and kind of feed this back to one another and kind of go back and forth. And, I think there'll be an interesting share of ideas between different customers in a neutral environment where you don't feel like you're kind of giving away trade secrets or anything like that. Some people do take a rising tide lifts all ship approach, and some people see every other venue as competition, whether you're selling coffees and they're selling kegs of beer. Hey, everybody has their own approach, and these are emotional things, and I'm not going to tell you you're right or wrong. But hopefully this gives a platform or a showcase, a way for people to kind of, iterate on these ideas in a safe environment where, it's not going to get overly competitive or concerning in that sense.
I struggle to sort of see or align with the perspective of like, I don't want to tell you how this could be better because then everyone could get better software. Like it's I do in some way I recognize it because I've seen that sort of behavior out in the wild. But I guess we're saying, hey, you're already using OrderEZ. Don't you want it to be better? And if so, how? So I think that it's regardless of your perspective on whether the rising tide raises all ships or maybe conspires to sink yours, uh, still should be valuable and also quite safe and comfortable, regardless of your perspective.
Yeah, and I love the idea we get to play around and try out some new stuff without having to invest, hours and hours of development. So, like, a good friend of mine asked, was describing, Jeff, this is what your job really is. I'm like, what's that? He goes, your job is to smash new ideas into reality as fast as possible. And so if we can smash some really cool reporting ideas into the reality of customer feedback, faster, so that what we build has more lasting power, I'm really excited about it.
I am as well, from a people perspective. Just the idea of, if there's something you don't like, let us know, because there's a good chance we can make it better. And so I think that's a really exciting place to operate in a really good sort of, it feels good interacting with our clients, being able to say, like, what could you like better, or what would you like different, and then seeing where it goes from there.
We can't always accommodate, but we're always going to listen.
So to that note, in the event that you're interested in signing up for the off-menu OrderEZ Beta program, there will be a link to sign up in the video description below. So take a look there. Some more fun stuff in store for, that.
Not downvote. Jeff, upvote the video, click on the link.
Jeff, I have to confess, I think the monks got me. I'm not even fully through my drink, and I'm feeling it. It's the medicinal glow is, I think, how I'm going to describe this.
They do have a couple 100 years practice. They're good at their craft.
If you had told me that I would be saying sneaky monks on a video at any point today, I'd look at you like you're crazy, but yet here we are. But Jeff, there is, before we, careen too far off the wheels, one more thing that I really thought was fun to discuss, and in reading the article that you wrote about the trajectory of Bourdain and Achatz, I believe is how his name is pronounced, is something that I'm a little bit excited about to share, and that is our next giveaway. So Jeff, do you care to do the reveal, or shall I?
Yeah, no, I'm excited. So I am the child of educators, and I'm the grandchild of educators. Like, I was taught very early in life that your education is the most important thing you can do. And we are going to further some education in the F&B space. And my favorite one to say, not sommelier, but cicerone. So we're giving away, is it 3 certified beer server courses? And that's the first level of the Cicerone journey.
Yes. We're using the operational term kind of Cicerone scholarship, because when in early stages, when I thought of Cicerone sponsorship, it sounded a bit off. Just a little bit dirty if you don't know what Cicerone means. So decided to go ahead and Cicerone scholarship seems a lot more wholesome. And yes, the exam fees for 3 individuals who are looking to get started on their path to being a proper Cicerone. So it's a pretty cool program. There are even kind of some regional differences. So let's say if you happen to be in America and want to become a Cicerone, or in Australia want to be a Cicerone, the curriculum is actually a little bit different, which I think is kind of fun and probably highlights regional differences of which I know nothing about. Full disclosure, not much of a beer drinker. I stick to very pretty looking cocktails, hopefully. But I think it's just really cool to put something out there in which, we're like one of my favorite things, and I know this is weird, but when I first started working as a line cook, I loved when I got access to like a knife set and I could sit there and doing like the mise en place and I'm sharpening the knives beforehand. And I always just felt like kind of a badass in that moment. And so kind of extend that forward. Like I like the idea of we're helping some people sharpen their knives. Like I like the idea of coming back into work like I'm a Cicerone now. Oh, and I just think it's a cool thing to do. And as we talked about the direction of the industry and the fact that with restrictions still lingering, of course in Singapore, but in a lot of ways Singapore has it better than many places in the world. Like, you know, I think it's time that we do give back or do reinvest into our industry because I, for one, as much as I like cooking, I'm not trying to do it for every single meal. And I rather enjoy eating, food and drink that is prepared by much more skilled hands than mine.
So true. I loved that, your little comment about how good it felt going into service when you had your mise en place completely organized, your knives sharpened. Like everybody wants to be great at their job, and like giving people the tools to be better at their job. You know, an old mentor of mine said, nobody shows up wanting to suck at their job. And I think it's so true. And sometimes employers fail their employees. I'm sure that I have fallen prey to this in my career for sure. But not giving your team the tools to succeed, and or even better, taking that kind of bull by the horns yourself and saying, I love this industry. I want to work in craft beer, and in order for me to really showcase my greatness and my commitment to this, I'm going to go down this journey of getting these certifications that teach me about the industry, but also show the external world that I'm committed to this in a meaningful way. The combination is a really strong 1-2 punch because you feel better about your job when you go into it, and you do better when you feel better about it. Everybody likes to do things that they're good at. So if you can set the stage so that you're doing something that you're really good at because you did the work, you just have better days at work. That's just how it is. And when you have better days at work, you get better opportunities. With better opportunities come more challenges. And it's this really virtuous cycle where, you get to continue down this path, and, maybe someday you're sitting for your master Cicerone and going, how did I ever end up here? And, if OrderEZ can say that we had a little small part in it by getting you your first nudge on that certification journey, I would be very honored and very proud to be able to take my tiny bit of credit for that.
Absolutely. Likewise to that. And as I think through it, there's one piece which I also want to add in that, you're better at your job, but you come in with a greater degree of confidence and hopefully enthusiasm. Isn't it just so much nicer when you're dealing with someone who has a really just great understanding of what it is that you have in front of you and can really be the hype man for your meal or for your beverage? Like I can think and in like fine dining, all the way to just going and a buddy who's a bartender deciding to make me a drink for him, that he created on the spot. Like there's something to it, and like, well, actually we did this because of this, and this is why we use this, or this is where this comes from. I think that one of the things I really appreciate most about going out for food and beverage that I don't make myself is the story of it. The fact that I'm getting a window into someone else's world.
So true.
Well, I have to say, out of all of the cocktails that I've created for the OrderEZ blog, probably my favorite, and maybe a testament to the fact that I didn't come up with this recipe myself, like some of the others. This was strictly an unadulterated recipe with no spin or tweaks or twists, because you don't mess with a classic. And so I felt that obligation to not do any adjustments to it, and I have to say it's paid dividends.
You know, when you let the pros do what the pros do, it sometimes works out just fine.
I do feel a little bit of guilt there in being, an amateur mixologist that, for the blog, I've tried out some riffs and revisions, which maybe the originators or we'll say kind of the arbiters of the culture might not be the biggest fans of. And so while I appreciate the playful side of experimentation, I'm also reminded of the phrase, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
You know,
And
the Ward 8, the Ward 8 has a lot of really bad riffs out there and a lot of bad old versions. And when I was reading through recipes to make one for tonight, I had to dig pretty deep to get one that was kind of universally regarded as pretty good. And I heard more horror stories than hype stories. So, even the classics need some tweaking from time to time because, I love when people talk about they're like an orange juice doesn't taste like orange juice did, 80 years ago, 90 years ago. Like the ingredients change with some minor exceptions like chartreuse, which has been made the same way for like 400 years or something. But for the rest of that stuff, I imagine that my rye whiskey tastes different than the rye whiskey that they were pouring in 1917 or 1920. Um, yeah, it's just the ever changing world, and sometimes the drinks have to tweak to make it as well.
I think that's a wonderful perspective in the sense of, hey, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if it's not doing what it's supposed to do, tweak it until it does. Um, and if it's not delivering, a great sort of drinking experience, then play with it, have fun with it. Because ultimately, like, one of the fun things about working in this business, one of the fun things about these experiences that we have, like, they're ephemeral by design. I'm never going to have a cocktail sitting in my room for, you know, 3 weeks. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to be like fixated on a meal in my fridge for a month on end. And if it is, I have a serious problem. Um, these are right in the moment experiences. And with these right in the moment experiences, it's something which, I think because of the fleeting nature of them, it gives us a little bit more permission to play with the boundaries and to say, all right, let's see what we can do to, make it work. So I'd say cheers to making it work.
Yeah. Oh,
And I think that fits for both the adjustments to the platform, adjustments to the cocktail, and plans for the future.
indeed.
Cheers.
Cheers. And on that note, thank you for organizing another great late night snacks, Emilio. Always a pleasure.
Likewise, likewise. Thank you for everyone who's joined us and who's watching. It's fun to chat and share, and this is kind of in a sense why we do it. Like, of course, it's fun to talk about, or I'd say maybe good to talk about kind of what we're doing with the company and what we're doing with the product, and all of these progressions. But at core, if you get to know anybody in the company, we're pretty big F&B nerds, and we just like to talk about this stuff, and it's a great excuse. So I'm all for it. So to that said, cheers to all the fellow F&B nerds out there. Do take a look at the beta program off menu that you'll see in the video description, and we welcome you to join us in further discussions, and we want to hear from you. This is for the industry. So cheers.
Thanks, guys.